Family, nature, and health all go together. Olivia Newton John, British and Australian singer and actress. Welcome to another morning episode of the Liberty Dad podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. For tuning in live, thank you so much for tuning in so early. All right, so what do we got going on today? You probably noticed, like, wait a minute, this doesn't look like politics and culture. That's right. I'm stepping away from it for a moment to just kind of discuss something. I don't want to call it personal because it's not like this, intimate thing, but a little bit about my personal life, and there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, I've got somebody coming over about 7:30, which we'll be talking about in just a second. So I've got to make it a short show. And I wanted to do a show. And then I was like, well, not really prepared because I've been so busy. And what can I talk about? And then I was like, you know what? I've taken a bunch of pictures of this. I might as well talk about it, just have a little bit of fun and just kind of break up the the angry politics and culture and politicians and bills and all this stuff that I normally talk about. So I figured, you know what? Let's talk about this. This will be fun. So what's going on? Couple weekends ago, not this weekend, but the last weekend, I was out working in the yard and it was completely dry out. Okay, had not been any rain for a few days, very dry. And I noticed this spot on the ground that was wet, like this circle. It was like about, I don't know, foot and a half in diameter, maybe. I was like, why is this spot randomly in the middle of the yard, well, kind of in the middle of the yard, wet? And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. So I started digging and it was just, there's more moisture as I got down. And I was like, I don't think this is good because where this spot is between my house and the water meter. So I was like, think I might have a leak. Like, this is not good. So I'm digging more and more. And eventually I found that there indeed was a leak. And what the way I found it is I dug down deep enough to where I could see some pooling of water. And so then I went back and I turned the water main off. And then I gave it about, I don't know, an hour. And then that water went away. And then I turned it back on and then the water bubbled back up again. And I was like, okay, we we definitely have a leak that I'm gonna have to dig into. So, the family and I went out there because my wife was like, "Oh, would you like some help?" And I was like, "Sure." And then my son was like, "Well, I wanna help." And so I was like, "All right, well, we'll just make this a family event, right?" And so we go out there and we start digging. And, let me show you some pictures of what we've got going on here. So, here's kinda like the hole as it kinda got started. And you can see, kind of in the middle of the screen there that I have a nice good sized root. And so then if you let me where's my controls here? There we go. All right, so we take an so here's a top down picture. So the root is about the size of my foot, at least as far as wide. And so I'm like, okay, well, got to keep digging. And as we're digging, we're encountering a lot of roots because that is a huge oak tree right next to the house. And this oak tree is probably 40 feet, maybe 50. I don't know. It's a pretty big sized tree. And you can see to the right of that, and maybe I can even, I don't know if I can zoom in on it, but to the right of it, you can see there's a stump. And that's because it was this bifurcated tree. So it had like you know, kind of came up and it split into two. And we'd already cut one side down because it was not in good health and it was hanging over the house. And so we were like, all right, well, let's get rid of that one. And they were like, well, do you want to cut the other one? We're like, well, no, we want to preserve as many of the trees here in the property as possible because we do like our tree. We like the trees and we like our shade. And so it we kept that one side and we had the other one cut down. And it was pretty costly. And so now here I am digging 5 feet from the tree. Okay. And so it's been a monstrosity of a nightmare because there are so many roots and some of the roots are gigantic. And I'm trying not to cut. the major ones, the big ones, because I don't really know about trees. I just like I mean, I have some knowledge, like simple knowledge, don't go cut some of the bigger roots, but I don't know to what extent. And so let's see what we got here. So there's another view of it. And you can see the pipe there. So that pipe is probably about, I don't know, a foot and a half down, somewhere around there. And so there's a close up. And so you can kind of see now what's going on. Right up to the right of it, you might see you should be able to see that tiny little hole. There's like a puncture hole. Now I don't know how a hole got punctured. I don't because it to me it looks like somebody took something and just poked a hole in it. So I don't really know how that happened exactly, but that is the cause of my problems right now. This tiny little hole. It's probably like the size of a big pen, like a pen that you might write with, and you could just poke that little hole. It's not very big. It's a tiny little hole. It's probably like 2 millimeters or something, and it's causing me all this grief. And so, um, so there's some more of it. So as I started digging, because ideally, what I would do is I would cut, or not cut, but I would dig enough so that I have a stretch of pipe on either side of the hole, and then I could just cut on either side, and then just put new pipe in, right? Just simply add it in, and I know how to do that. Like I've done this kind of piping before. However, as you can see, there is nice root that was wrapped around it. Now that actually is just past the hole. So I need to at least get this root out of the way in order for me to properly deal with this hole. And so at first I was like, all right, well, we're it's costing us money. So maybe what we can do is just patch it while I'm digging because this is a pretty tremendous job. Because I can't dig with a regular shovel because there are so many roots and some of them are so big. So we're literally hand digging with this. And it was awful. It was really terrible. I didn't like this is not one of the I like working in my yard. And lately, maybe it's just old age. I don't really know, old age creeping in. I'm not really old. But I'm getting older and now I kind of fancy myself a landscaper. So I'm out in the yard a lot working and doing different things to try to make the yard look really nice, improve the property value, so on and so forth. Get my son touch grass, son sun, son, but also have my son son out with me, and we both enjoy going out and working and doing different things in the yard. So, so I'm cool with doing this, and this is something that I'm kind of familiar with anyway. I've done this kind of stuff, so like no big deal. Like this would be a nice little project that I do, and but there's this root wrapped around it, and I'm like, all right, well, I got to cut this root. So initially, I get out I got this pole saw attachment for my Ryobi outdoor tools, and I start cutting, and it's working on some of the roots, but this one, it wasn't enough. It was too small, and so I was like, all right, well, I asked my neighbor, I'm like, hey, do you happen to have a sawzall? And he was like, yeah, or you might know it as a reciprocating saw. So he's like, "Yeah, I got one." So he let me borrow it, and then I start cutting, and I get a little bit better, but I'm still having a lot of trouble with this particular root right here, that's wrapped around the pipe, and I need to get, I don't know. I was aiming for about a 1 foot clearance from either side of the hole, so that I would have a nice little stretch there, and I could cut it out, and then dig out, and and everything, and so have plenty of room in order for me to replace that section of the pipe. So that's what I was aiming for. And so then here's another picture of it, and I'm gonna put this up on the screen so I can see a little bit better, so I can see. So that's another angle from the pipe. It's kind of a little bit further away, and you can see how massive it is, just kind of wrapped around the pipe. And so here's a close up. Now this is after I cut one side of it. So I was able to, so it was wrapped around, and I was able to kind of cut. You can see that it is indeed wrapped around. It doesn't seem to wrap around entirely, but enough to cause a problem. And just so you know, that yellow there, which just is some of the color that came off of the blade. Um, this it's not just this singular like root that you would expect. It's actually almost like a stump in itself. It's a little harder to tell from this particular picture here, but it is more of a stump that has also wrapped around this pipe. So then you can kind of see now where we've got It's coming up over, and if and there's a lot of dirt everywhere, so it's really, really difficult to see. But like between my head on the screen and the root that you can very visibly see underneath that dirt, that's all root as well. So like this is just this is almost this like ginormous like fist of a root that's around this pipe that I'm trying to to take care of. And so this has been a lot of fun. So this is yet another angle where I've kind of cut it, and I just took a bunch of pictures so I could kind of see what was going on. And then we get here. So here was where it got really fun. So I got tired of hand digging, and I'm trying to preserve as many of the bigger roots as possible. I didn't want to just go dive in and just start cutting roots everywhere, because if I harm the tree, then I may have to cut the other one down. And so then this project becomes a lot more costly to me. But I also got tired of digging, so I was like, "All right, well, what am I gonna do here?" So I started researching online, and apparently there's a really cool tool called an air spade. It's like this basically big pipe, and it connects to an air compressor, and then arborists use it apparently, and they just literally blow the dirt away. And it's like I was watching a video of it, and I was like, "Wow, this is really dope." So I started calling like every rental place in town, and none of them had it for rent. And it looks like I don't think just to buy the tool itself is like $2,500. And so I was like, well, with some of the rest of the yard work I've got to do, I don't know, that might actually be worth it. But right now I'm focused on this particular project. And so you can see I've got this ginormous hole. Like I could probably fit in there if I cut away the roots. So like it's this huge hole now. And so I hand dug most of the hole here on the left, and then somewhere in the middle. But then to the right, that was all what I might call air dug. Like, I'm not really sure the proper term for it, but I rented air compressor, and I just got down and started, blowing the air, and it does a really wonderful job, because what's neat about it is I don't have to fight all the roots. So I can blow all the dirt out, and then I can see what roots are there, and then I can determine, okay, which ones do I want to cut? But as I started digging and I started finding more and more roots, and so we found this massive root kind of like right in the center of the hole there. So initially, the one that you saw with my foot a few moments ago, that's that one that's on the top to the left there. But now that one on the bottom to the right, that's an even bigger root, and that's not even the one that's wrapped around the pipe. And then you've got another, pretty significant size off to the far right there. And so at some point, I was just like, okay, I think this project is getting a lot bigger than I had wanted it to be, and that that I'm interested in following, because I'm doing this on my spare time. And so I'm like, I don't, like, I don't know how long this is going to take. And I'm going to have to rent some bigger tools, because I simply just I don't work with tree roots. So I don't have, like, you might think, well, deal, don't you have like a chainsaw or something? And I actually don't. I don't have a chainsaw. And I know there are some bigger tools that you can rent that will probably make mincemeat of this. But the question is, like, is that the route I want to go? Well, I don't know. I don't think so. And the reason is because, again, I'm doing this in my spare time. I have a full-time job, I've got a family, you know, I do a lot of cooking, I work, I podcast, so I've already got a lot going on, right? I'm trying to actually take care of the rest of my yard and like do really nice things to it. And so like I have to decide, like, do I want to do this? And so that's one of the reasons why I was talking about this today, because I got to have a short show, and probably in about next 15-20 minutes or so, I'm expecting a plumber to show up, so that we can start talking about, okay, how are we going to deal with this professionally? Like, because I think it's time to pass this off to somebody that has the tools, has the resources, is familiar with doing this kind of stuff already. And that's what they do for a living, right? Like if I didn't have a job, like it wouldn't be such a big deal. Like maybe I give it a shot, but I do have a job and I do have other things. So this is no longer worthy of a project in my spare time. And this is the main water pipe to my house. So now you might be asking yourself, like, well, what's going on in the meantime? Like, there's a hole in it. Well, I patched it. I did manage to patch it. So let's see. I think that's the next picture. I think that's the final picture. No, that's not the final picture. This is me and my little buddy. So we went out and we got really dirty, and We put on our safety glasses and, you know, mask and all that so that, we didn't have to breathe in dirt and get it in our eyes and all that. Although I did find dirt in my ear actually. So I should have been like him and wore some ear protection. I didn't really need it wasn't too loud, but the ear protection would have been useful to not get actual dirt inside of my ear. Like I was just like, what's in there? And I was like, I pulled out like a little chunk of dirt. And I was like, okay. So I wasn't expecting that. So that's him and I after we finished up digging the hole. He helped. He would get in there with the little air tool and just kind of spray it around. And that was a lot of fun. It was a nice little project for us to go out there and get dirty. So, but the time has come uh, to to have somebody else do it. And now I got to look and where's the picture of, oh man. Okay, so well, let me see here. Let's look at this video here. I got a video we can show you. So let me show you the hole in action. Okay, so this is a video that we took. So what happened was this is early on in the project where I had it dug out, found the hole, and then I had my little buddy be the cameraman while I went and turned the water on. So here's that video. Maybe. Then wait till I come back, okay? So what I'm trying to do is see like how serious is this hole? Is this the only one? Of course, I didn't realize it was going to shoot at him. So there's the water.
Watching me.
Yeah. All right. All right. So there you can see the water coming out. And then you might say, okay, well, that doesn't seem like a lot, or maybe you think that way, but it is a lot, actually. It's quite a bit. And here's what it looks like when it puddles up. So, and I cut the sound on this, but I've got it on loop so that you can kind of see it. But that's the water. And that took about maybe 10, 15 minutes to pull up. Like it didn't take very long, and maybe a half an hour at most. So it is a significant amount of water that we've got going on there. So this is the project that I've got working on right now, and I want to show you a picture. And I'm going to find this picture really quickly, and we're going to pull it up on the screen so that you can see the patch that I did, because I thought it was a pretty ingenious patch. And so let me go ahead and let's see here. Uh, Oops, go back. So give me a second. I found the picture. I gotta get it in, added to the screen here so that we can see it. So give me just a second. I thought I had it, and I guess I must have deleted it. So that's okay. We will get past that, and I will have it up in just a moment here so that you can see this glorious patch that I did. And I'm actually pretty impressed with it, because initially what I was hoping to do was, um sorry, I'm distracted because I'm trying to get it all set up here. But what I was hoping to do is get enough away that I could use this tape. There's this tape that they sell that you can wrap around it, and it's a nice little. It will hold very tightly and keep it, like the water pressure won't. I'm trying to think how to say it. It was tape that I'm not familiar with. That I've never used it before, but I found it at Lowe's, and and it's made for this kind of a purpose, but it's very temporary. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to get enough of that root away to be able to wrap the tape around the pipe. So then I was like, okay, well, now what am I going to do? Because I can't finish the project all in one day. We still need water to the house. So I came up with this idea, and I've got it ready here. Give me just a second. All right. Boom. There we are. So this is the fix that I have that's on there right now. So this is an adjustable clamp. And then what I did was I went and I bought a rubber washer, and I just kind of cut it down to size a little bit. And then I put the washer over the hole, and then I put the clamp around the washer, around the pipe. And then I just simply tightened it as tight as I could. And so this picture is actually with the water on, and it has been on for several days now because we're in the middle of working on this and everything. And it's held very, very nicely, but obviously it's not going to be a permanent fix. So this is the project that we've got going on. This is why I decided to take a little bit of a break from the normal politics and culture and criticizing people or talking about bills and all that good stuff, and just say, let's talk about something that's a little personal, not really intimate, but just a little fun, and just show you. And then I thought this would also be good because this is kind of the essence of Liberty Dad. right? So if you notice the logo that I use is a saw blade with a tie in between in the center of it. And it's to kind of signify that, yeah, I'm a white collar worker. My day job is programming. Basically, I write code, I automate things. So that's what I do. But then I also can get out there and do blue collar level work. In this particular case, it just happens to exceed the time that I have available to work on it, and I had to make a decision and say, all right, let's call in the big guns and have them take care of it from here. I've at least got it, cleared out enough so that they can make a good assessment of what's going on and what they need to do to resolve it. So, like, I mean, I consider that a win no matter what, because at least I understand the project, the nature of it, the scope of it, and I'm able to make a decision and say, is this something that I want to do? And this is what I teach my son. Like, I want you to learn these things so that you can decide if this is something that you want to do. So in the future, what I'm hoping for him is that when a project like this pops up, he can dig into it, figuratively speaking or literally, and then he can determine, like, okay, is this a project that I want to pursue or not? I have the capability, I have enough knowledge and skill set that I've acquired over time that I can go and do this. Or I can say, you know what, this is something that I need to call somebody because it's simply, I don't want to do it, or in some cases, maybe it is out of the scope. Like, you can't do everything. But the idea of Liberty Dad is that, we can get out and we can do things, we can do more than change a light bulb, right? We can do a lot of things on our own. We understand tools, we understand how to use them, variety of tools, whether that tool is a screwdriver, a gun, or a keyboard. Like, they're all tools. But the idea is that we can live life making decisions based on what we prefer or what is in our best interest, rather than, oh my God, help, I don't know what to do. And the fewer of those that we can have, the better off, in my opinion. And there are things where I'm like, I have no idea. Right. And there have been a few times where something has popped up, there's been an issue, and I'm like, You got me. Like, I don't know enough about this whatsoever, and I don't think I could research adequately in a short amount of time to become knowledgeable. So I just wanted to tell you that and just kind of point, and I'm getting ready to log off here and go and wait for the plumber to show up so we can discuss, how bad the damage is going to be to our checkbook. So, checkbook or wallet or bank account, Bitcoin, whatever you want to call it these days, right? But basically, how rough is this going to be? So that's what we're gonna do. But I also have an announcement. It's a small announcement. It's not a really big one. It's nothing major. Um, Today, I'm actually going to be podcasting or live streaming twice because I have managed to secure some time tonight with our national chair. Where is the picture here? So let me pull this up. So tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time, 7 p.m. Central time, Angela McCardle and I are going to have a conversation. Now, you might be asking yourself, like, DL, what's the nature of this conversation? Well, I've been critical of some things that she's been up to. And she recently had a video come out. She did a live stream the other day. I think it was Saturday, maybe. I think it was Saturday. But Saturday she did a live stream, and I was critical of some elements of that live stream, and we had a small exchange, nothing nasty or terrible, just a little back and forth. And then I reached out and I said, "Hey, why don't you come on the podcast and we'll discuss this?" And so she agreed. And so tonight at 8 p.m., clear your schedule because we're going to talk about some things. It's not going to be a nasty conversation. I don't do that. I will be asking her some very direct questions. Okay. And she's not familiar with the questions, but she is familiar with the nature of the questions. So I'm not gonna. I don't do gotcha questions. So I'm not there to try to make her look foolish or tell her one thing and then surprise her with some other question. That's not appropriate. That's not what I do. I'll leave that for the journalists to do those games. I'm doing something different. I'm just going to have a conversation, and there'll be some questions that I have, and I want some answers. So we're going to see if we can get some good answers, and hopefully tonight when people watch it, they will find it valuable, and maybe that will settle some of the anger that's being leveled at her. I mean, I don't think it's going to settle entirely, but maybe we can at least mitigate some of it a little bit, or whatever. And again, I just want to point out, it, I'm going to be asking direct questions. She doesn't know what specifically I'll be asking, and they're not gotcha questions. But at the same time, I'm not trying to carry her water. She has to answer for them, right? So I'm not here to carry the water. I'm just kind of letting you know, like, the way that I'm going to approach it is what I would consider to be, very respectable. And, either she will have good answers or she won't. And that's that. She will either satisfy me with my questions or she won't. And I'm sure that some people will tune in and they're not going to hear what they want to hear. And there'll be some other people, hopefully, they'll tune in and they'll say, okay, maybe that does make sense. And maybe that will change their mind and maybe it won't. And that's fine too, like whatever the case is. But that we're just gonna have a conversation. So look forward to that tonight, 8 p.m. And then I'll follow up, I guess, maybe on the project. Maybe I'll just, the next episode or so, I'll tell you how the project went, and then, I mean, I'm obviously not going to be working on it anymore. So there won't really be any more pictures, unless they dig like a ginormous hole or something like that. So I don't know what they're going to do. They may reroute the pipe around somewhere else. Maybe they'll just knock out a bunch of roots, get plenty of plenty of lead to work with, and then replace that section of pipe and then dump all the dirt back in. I don't really know, but I'll give you a heads up. So hopefully this has been, a little fun break from the normal politics and culture and all that good stuff. And you had a little bit of, have a little bit of a chuckle at my expense, for what I've been dealing with. But this is one of the reasons, so and I want to point out, like, sometimes I don't do a show and I'm trying to really figure out, like, okay, when things like this happen, what do I do so that I can maintain a show on a daily basis? And so this was my idea today, and maybe I'll do more of this. Maybe, when I've got something going on, I'll take a break and I'll just talk about something that's a little bit more personal or a little bit more lighthearted, something like that. Because ultimately the goal is, you're tuning in at 7 a.m. and I want, I'm telling you, like, hey, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m., tune into my show. Well, I want to make sure that I'm always here doing a show at 7 a.m. So I'm actively working on that. And I've got a friend that's assisting me with some things. So hopefully I'm going to get some more interviews with some candidates and some dads for my Dad Talk series. So lots of fun things coming, and I'm diligently working to make this show absolutely reliable for everybody that tunes in at 7 a.m. Or, if you tune in later, if you're like, hey man, 7 a.m. it doesn't work for me, but I do like to catch up on the show later. I'm trying I am actively working on that. But bear with me. I am a one-man band and there is a lot going on here. And when push comes to shove, the podcast does take a back seat, for right now. So that's where we are. Hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you found it, I don't know if you'd find it informative and inspiring. I mean, maybe I inspired you to go out and dig holes in your yard too. And that's cool. And if I did, let me know. Be like, hey, DL, I was so inspired by the giant hole that you were forced to dig in your yard that I just went out and started digging holes in my yard to look for leaky pipes. And that will be cool. And I will be like, oh, wow, that's really cool. But I suspect that won't be happening. And that's okay too. Anyway, be sure to catch me Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern, for an informed discussion on politics and culture and the occasional personal, talk about whatever's going on. Make sure that you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, or if you prefer, my Rumble channel. You can go to youtube.libertydad.com, or you can go to rumble.libertydad.com. While you're there, make sure you hit the like and subscribe, and let me know how I'm doing by leaving a comment. Last but not least, I want you to remember, if you're a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. I know I will, despite all things concerned here. I will be having a great week. Hope you do too. But for now, catch you next time because I am out.